Okay, and so let's take a look at our agenda again. So we're going to start by exporting our images. Um, and so we already went over this in more detail in Photoshop, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail. But this is just part of the process. So we'll go over this in Photoshop, and then we'll also do it in Illustrator, which we haven't done before, but it's a very similar process. We're going to make two different types of files, JPEG with our Photoshop self-portrait and PNG with our Illustrator self-portrait. You could use different file formats for each one. You don't have to, this isn't like the rule that you always have to use these specific formats. It's more dependent on what type of project you're making. But a PNG for our Illustrator project is probably going to look better because it's lossless. And our Illustrator project has more sort of like curves and fine details. Whereas our JPEG has a lot of color data. Our Photoshop project has a lot of color data, so that's going to be better for JPEG. Then we'll go over the Open Lab part, just how to post on the Open Lab. It's not too hard. It's just like posting on a blog or a social network or something like that. So we'll go over that, and then we'll go over the text that you have to include, and then submitting everything on Black. So that is our agenda for today. I'm going to go ahead and start by opening up my project in Photoshop and exporting a JPEG. I'm going to minimize this stuff, put here. Okay, so I have my MMP 100 folder, and in here I have my Photoshop intro and my Illustrator self-portrait. I'm going to go to the Photoshop intro first and just open up my intro.ts. And I'm not going to change anything here. I'm just going to export a JPEG. So as I mentioned, we did cover this in another video. So I'm not going to go over the details here, but we'll just kind of review real quick. So there's my Photoshop image, and you may want to make some changes, make some additions, do whatever, but I'm good with what I've got here as an example. So I'm just going to go straight to File, and then I'm going to go to Export, and I'm going to go to Export App. This is kind of the default way to export, and so then I can make some settings and set up my file. So for this one, we want to choose JPEG. So the file settings gives you a couple of options. We're going to choose JPEG. For the quality, you can put on high quality. If we put it on low quality, it's not going to look as good. And as long as if you put it on high quality, as long as it's not way too big, you'll be fine. It's like put it on high quality and it says it's like 20 megabytes. That's too big. So you want to lower it down a little bit. As long as you're under a megabyte, you're fine with this. So we're going to leave everything else on here the same. And then we're just going to go ahead and click export. And I've already got an export since we've done this before. So I'm just going to overwrite this one. You could save a second copy. You could, say like number 2 here if you want, but I'm just going to keep it simple and just overwrite the one that I had there. So I'm just going to click, and it'll say, do you want to replace? And I'm happy with that. So I'm going to say yes. And there we go. I'm done with that. So let's close this out now. So there's my intro.jpg, and that's what I'm going to post on the Open Lab when I'm ready. But for now, I'm just going to go back to my MMP 100 folder. And now I'm going to export my Illustrator self-portrait. So I'm going to double click on here and open up Illustrator self-portrait. So this process is pretty similar. The one thing that we will want to look at is whether or not we include the artboard when we export this. And that'll just change the dimension of your project. So that's the one set. Want to so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And I'm actually going to edit this just a little bit because I added this red thing in here as an example, but I don't really want that in here. And I'm going to move, let's click this, and group this, and then let's see. I don't want to fit this in here somewhere. I'll just actually extend this blue background. So I'm going to unlock this and double click on here. I'm going to drag this. And there we go. So this is good enough for my example. It looks a little goofy, but this is just for a demo, so that's okay. So now I'm ready to export. So with Illustrator, I do something similar. I go to File, and I go to Export, and I'm going to go to Export As. And then here is where don't want that. I want to choose a PNG. And here's where you can see it says you have the option to use artboards or not. And essentially what that's going to do is basically you can see, if I look at this image, there's a lot of white space graphics that I have. If I choose use the artboard, it's going to make an image that's the size of that white space, regardless of what shapes and color, all the stuff that I actually have on the canvas. If I click not to use the artboards, it's only going to export the visible shapes. So it'll actually crop it down a little. So we can look at that. So I'm going to click export. It's going to bring up another option for the resolution. The higher resolution you do, this one is for like printing versus screen. I'm not too worried about this because we're not going to print these, so it doesn't really matter what you put here. Don't have to do anything here. You can decide if you want to have a background color that's transparent or not. And then you can see this preview right here. You can see it's cropped in. So you see the art that we would be getting without the artboard. So I'm going to leave that on transparent. That's one of the nice things about a PNG is we can actually have a transparent background, which you can't do with it. So you'll be able to see stuff behind it if it's embedded in the page with different background color and stuff like that. So I'm going to click OK here, and that should be exported. So if I go back to my File Explorer, you can see there's my self-portrait.png. If I open that up, you can see there's my little self-portrait. And just to show, if I go back here and I go to Export and go to Export As, if I this time choose Use Artboards and then click Export, you can see in this preview here that there's all this extra space around. So it's cropped to the size of the artboard rather than the art itself. So I don't really want to do that, so I'm just going to click Cancel. And now have exported my Illustrator file. Okay, so I'm good with that. So I have my two files and I'm ready to go. There's one other thing that I am going to need for my Open Lab post, which is my image citations, which I put here in my notes. I have these two images that I used, and I just have the link, so I don't have all the data here that I'm going to need. But I'm just going to open this up, and when I'm ready, I'm going to go to those pages that I need. And I'll just use the example of how to do that when I'm ready. Okay, so I've got everything I need ready to go. I'm going to go back to my browser, and now I'm going to go to the Open Lab page. So there's a few different ways I can get here. I think we've already looked at this a couple times, but one, the links are all in the Blackboard. So if you go to Blackboard and go to Info, extra tabs. If you click here, Open Lab site, this takes you to the main site for the Open Lab, and that's where you're going to make the post. And if you've already created an account and you're logged in, you should see your name here, and you should see a little add post button there. If you don't see those things, then you need to do two things. You need to join the Open Lab, and you need to also join the site. So there's two parts that you need. So to join the Open Lab, you really just go to any Open Lab page. I'll go to the home page. It doesn't really matter what page you go to if you don't have an Open Lab account. When you go to the Open Lab, you're going to see something like this where you have a sign up and a login option. So there's a sign up and a login option. I'm going to copy this and put this in the chat for you guys to access. And the process is pretty simple. When you click sign up, you just have to fill a few things out. There is a help page. Scroll down here and go to help. There is a page about how to sign up and log in. And so I'll post that here as well. So you may not need help with this, but you can probably just follow the instructions. But if you need help, there's some notes there. So once you log in, what you're going to end up seeing is the Open Lab page itself. So I'm just going to log in. And the Open Lab is a little bit confusing because the content on the Open Lab is organized into a few different types. And then the site that we're actually using is a site that's associated with our Open Lab project. So for example, if I go to my profile on the, this is not just for our class. This is your personal profile that you could use for any class that gets taught on the Open. So some of you guys may have had an Open Lab class. If you haven't and you're a multimedia major, you probably will in the future. A lot more of our classes are using the Open Lab for this type of organization and publishing. You may never use the Open Lab again. It just kind of depends on what classes you end up taking. But either way, it's good to have, to understand how publishing on the internet works in general. So anyway, so you have a profile. If you want to, you can change the image, your profile image. You can fill out some content here. This isn't necessary for the assignment, but it could be cool to have that. You'll see your avatar show up in your blog author thing down here. Like you can see, I have my little apple here, and that's my image for my profile picture. You also get a portfolio site with your profile. So you only get one site, but this is your personal portfolio site. You can post anything here that you want to. You can even post stuff that you post on our blog first. I'll show you where that is in a second. But that is a useful thing. If you have different classes on the Open Lab, you can collect projects that you've done for a bunch of different classes into your own portfolio and see it all there in place. So if you haven't added the course yet, if you go to my courses, you're not going to see, you can see I have a whole bunch of courses. I have courses from this semester and previous. So if this is your first time using the Open Lab, you may not see any courses here at all. And so that's the next step is you have to join them. And there's a specific link to do that, which is this link right here. And so this basically just takes you to the group page for the course on the Open Lab. So I'll paste that link. And so all you have to do, my button here says clone this course because I created it. Yours is going to say join. When you click join, it's going to add you to the members. So you can see right now there's a few members. When you click join, it's going to add you as a member. So that's the last step in the process. Then you can go to visit course site, and that will take you to the course page. And now if you did everything right, you should see this menu at the top with your add post button. So you need to make sure that that all works. That's something that you can do in class today. If you have any technical issues, we do have another week to resolve those issues before the first assignment is due. But you need to let me know if you have any issues with that so we can figure out how to fix it. And usually it's pretty easy. We could probably do it in class. Just let me know if you have getting that to work. Okay, so now we're ready to actually make our post. So all I have to do is I click this plus button or click the post button here. So this is going to go to add a new post. If you've ever used a blog before, this is going to look pretty familiar. If you've never used a blog before, that's fine. We're going to go over how to do this. Basically, the blogging interface has a place where you can add media and write out your blog, your content. And then there's a few different settings that we can look at. We don't really need to use some stuff like this menu down here. We don't need to. But basically, there's a menu over here. You can show and hide that using the little button here. And there's a few different things that we want to do. So one thing is we want to set the category. So this is our self-portrait assignment. So you can use that as the category. That'll make it so it's easy to find everybody's posts. I'm going to choose the self-portrait category. We can ignore the rest of this stuff and start writing our post. So now we can write our post. So I'm going to say self-portrait by Roberts. You don't have to put your name in here. Actually, it's going to put your name at the bottom of the post. Let's just say, okay. So the first thing we're going to want to do is actually add in our media. And there's a couple different ways to do this. I'll show you guys both ways. One way is just to drag it and drop it into WordPress. So if I have my folder open in my File Explorer and I can see the File Explorer and my browser page at the same time, I need to be able to see them both. I'm going to find that image. So I want my JPEG, my first image. I'm just going to drag it on here. The thing you have to be careful is you need it to make this little blue. If it doesn't show a blue line, it's not going to work. So if I try to do this without a blue line, nothing happens. So I'm going to try that again. I want to make sure there's a little blue line there. Once I get that blue line, I can drop it, and it's going to add my image in here. So this is my first self-portrait. So now I can add a caption to the image, but I want to just start writing down here. And actually, let's go to the digital imaging page to review the requirements. So let's see. Here we go. So we're going to make a short statement. So we're going to add our images, but then we also need to write a short statement and credit our images. So there's a template here that's pretty easy to follow. So the first part, the raster part, is referring to the JPEG, the Photoshop part. And so we just want to follow this template. You can copy and paste it directly to your post, or we can just go ahead and write it. So the title, I'm just going to title mine as self-portrait. And then we want to say the semester and year. So this is just for our portfolio, so we know when we created this. So that is spring. And then finally, we have the software. And so this is just some information. This is good. I'm hearing some audio. Adewale, do you have a question or something? All right, thank you. Okay. So I want to include the software. So when I have my portfolio, people can see all the different things that I've used. So they can see that I know Photoshop, I know Illustrator, all of the different software that I use. And then we're just going to have a quick description, just 2 or 3 sentences about what the images that we chose for the self-portrait and what we're. So I'm just going to do this quick. So I'm going to say I'll say for my self-portrait, I composited together an image of a cat and a lizard to show the duality of my personality. You can say whatever you want. You could say I added in, space because I love the outer space stuff. Whatever it is that you are doing in your self-portrait, you can describe here. And that's just a chance for you to kind of give some context to the project, what you were interested in or what you're going for. This is another good thing to have in your portfolio because people, when you're applying for a job or you're applying for transfer, things like that, people are interested in your skills as a designer and your technical, but they also want to know that you can describe what you're doing, what you're working on. That's an important thing to be able to do to actually pitch your work, to be able to explain why you made what you made and why it's interesting and what your process was. So we just want to write a little bit of a description here. I'm going to talk more about what I actually did. So I used, I kind of forget, I used blending and filters to match the lighting from the lizard scene to the lighting of the cat scene and applied, I used a gradient map to create stylized look. Okay, so a little description of what you were going for and how you achieved it. And then we're going to do citations for our image. So you can see down here in the template how to do a citation. So you have the title of what you used. This is not just for images, but we're using these for images. Then the author, last name, first name, or if they just have a username, that's fine. Then what type of license was used? You don't have to write out the whole license, just the type of license. Then where you got it, the name of the website, the date that it was uploaded or created, if that's available, and then finally the URL. So there's a quick example right here of what that's going to look like. And so I use 2 images for this. So I'm going to go and grab the first image that I use and paste it here. So going to just go through. So the name of the image is Cats Coming. So, well, actually, first let's say image sources. And so the first image is Cats Coming. And then the author, find the author. Oh no, I think that might be the author. Go to more info. This tells us the date, but not. Okay, I think the actual name of this image is European short hair cat on a. And I think Cat's Coming, the author. Yeah. Okay, so let's switch that real quick. So the name of the image is European short hair cat on a woven basket by Cats Coming. Then the license. So let's find the license. So doesn't specify the license here. It says Creative Commons. This is actually the Pexels license. So this is not a Creative Commons license, but it's pretty similar because I think all of their stuff is under this license. So all photos and videos on Pexels are free to use. Attribution is not required. Giving credit to the photographer is not necessary, but appreciated. You can modify it. Okay. So we're just going to call this the Pexels license. I'll say Pexels license. And then the next part is the title of the website, which is pexels.com. Pexels. And then I think the last part is here. So that is in here, more info. So it's 2018. So I'll just say October 18. And then at the end of this, we're just going to put the link to the image itself. And when I paste an image into WordPress, sometimes it does this thing where it wants to embed the website. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to say convert. And so there we see the link. So that was the first citation. I'm going to go back to my notes and grab the link third image. Okay, so this author is UV's Pick World, and the title is Green Chameleon. So I'm just going to copy that. UV's Pick World. And the license is probably also the Pexels license because it's the same website. So Pexel license and what the date was. So click on more info, and the date is August 2018. And then a link, grab a link here. So these are all Pexels license. If you use something else, you probably need to look for the Creative Commons license. So I'll show a quick example of that. So if I Google cat, go to images, and go to usage Creative Commons, let's choose like a Wikimedia. And so if I go to this image on Wikimedia, so you can see there's a lot of same information, like the date that was uploaded, um, the author here. Doesn't have a title. I guess Beige Cat is the title. But what we want to find is the license information. See licensing here, and then it says this file is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike International. So that's the name of the license there. You don't have to copy any of the rest of the information. You just have to say the name. That's what goes license. Okay, so that's everything for my Photoshop portrait. Let's move on to the Illustrator portrait. So I'm going to go back to the File Explorer. Well, actually, so I'm going to show you guys the other way to add media in WordPress. So drag and drop is how we added the first one, but we can also use this plus button. So we can type into the interface, but if we want to add media or other types of content, we click on the plus, and you can see there's some default options here, including image. You can also search, find it, it's not there. I'm going to click image. That brings up this new block. I can actually drag and drop onto this as well. But if I want to use my interface, I can click upload and then go to my desktop and find my 100 folder, go to Illustrator. Here's my self-portrait. I'm going to click open here, and it's going to put it in. There we go. So then this is my next self-portrait. So the title is also self-portrait. If you want to choose a different title, you're welcome to. I'm just using the default. And so this is the same year and semester, spring 2023. And then the software is Illustrator. And for the description, I'm going to say I created a little purple robot character that represents personality and included some text with some cool blending effects. What else did I do? And a little background that looks like some water. Again, the description is just kind of something that shows us a little bit about your process, what you were going for, just a sentence or two explaining what your concept was. And then there's no citations for this one because we didn't use any source images, although you could use an image Illustrator if you wanted to. So that's pretty much everything. Once you've got everything that you want inside of your project, you probably want to preview. So click on the preview button and open this in a new window. And so you can just make sure you'll see what it's going to look like when you publish. So you can just make sure everything you want it to, and that all good. So now, once you preview, we have to click publish. So once we click publish, it's going to bring this up and say, do you really want to publish? I'm going to say yes. And then it's going to generate what's called a permalink, or the default link for this post. So you can copy that. We're going to put this in Blackboard later. You can also click on view post. That'll take you to the shelf. This is the link that you are going to submit for your project. So this link right here. So the post link. You can also probably share this. You can get the link by clicking on the share button here, the copy link, or you can just select the link here and copy. If you made a mistake and you need to edit it, there's an edit button that only you will see since you created the post. You won't see it on other people's posts. You can click on edit, and that's going to bring you back to this WordPress interface. And so you can make any changes that you want to make, but you have to remember to click the update button. If you don't click the update button here, it's not going to save those changes. So once you're done with that, everything looks good. You can go back to the URL if you want to, and just copy this. The URL is never going to change, so if you make changes in the future, you don't have to resubmit. URL will always be this. Okay, so we're just about ready to submit. Let's check our checklist. So we exported our JPEG, we exported our PNG, made our post on Open Lab, we included our image citations. So now we're ready to submit on Blackboard. So let's go over to Blackboard over here. I'm going to go into the student preview, so this will look like what you. Okay, so we just go to the assignments area and click on the self-portrait assignment. So you're going to see the rubric here. If you want to review the rubric, just click on that View Rubric button, and it's going to open a new window. And you're going to see all of the requirements for the project. So the raster, that's the Photoshop version. That's the first one. So it's going to, you're going to see the requirements here. The raster program is appropriately used. So crop, selection, mask, filters, adjustment layers, all the stuff we worked on in Photoshop. Then the vector image, same thing here. Shapes, pen, Pathfinder, all the stuff that we talked about. Then the file format, so you need to submit all the files that we talked about, the JPEG, the PNG, PSD, and file. Then the content, just what the images actually look like. This one is probably the most sort of ambiguous. So as long as you made something and you can justify why you made it, you should get full credit there. Then the citations for the images is this attribution description, file organization. This is just kind of the same thing, that your files are all correctly. And then the general idea execution. Okay, so those are all the requirements. So make sure you double check that before you submit. And then here's what we need to submit: a Photoshop file, Illustrator file, and the Open Lab link. So we can click on Write Submission, and then you just have to put the link in here. If you want to put other text, that's fine. You can say my Open Lab post, and then I'm just going to paste that link in there. That's all you have to do for the text part. Then we have to add a couple files. So here it says attach files. We're going to click browse local files and just find your AI file. So I'm going to go to the desktop, go to my project folder, go to Illustrator, click on the AI file, click open, and it's going to upload. There are, I forget exactly what there are. There are some like size limitations, but I think it's pretty high. I don't think you should have an issue with this, but if you do, let me know and we can figure out another way to submit the file. So we attach the self-portrait. I'm going to click this again. Now I'm going to go back to Photoshop, find my PSD, and click open. Okay, so now there's that. So I've got everything that I need. I have my link to my Open Lab post, my AI file, my PSD file. Okay, so now I'm going to click submit. And those files are probably getting processed. It's taking its time. And then eventually it's going to look like this. And you're all done. You're good to go. You can resubmit, so you can see there's a start new button here. So if you forgot something or you want to change something, you can start a new version. But once you've submitted, you should be good. That's everything we need there. One last thing I'm going to go over before we're done. I'm going to exit this before. So a few of you guys were using Photopea instead of Photoshop at the beginning of the semester. If you are using Photopea, you can still submit a PSD file. So if you're on Photopea, I'm going to go to a new project and just click create. I'm not going to make anything in here, but I'll just show you guys. All you have to do if you use Photopea instead of Photoshop is go to File and go to Save as PSD. So when you click on Save as PSD, it's going to make a new project.psd, whatever the name is. And that's an actual working Photoshop file that you can open in Photoshop. So you can submit that if you Photopea. So I think that covers everything. I'm going to stop here and then let you guys work on this. If you have questions, let me know and we can go.